Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Mermaid Portal Experience. I'm Carly. This is Owning Authenticity. So glad you're here. This message has been literally years in the making. Okay, so that's exciting as far as yay for deepening understanding that lets us feel better and better and better in our lives. It's basically the name of the game here on Owning Authenticity. It's like all we're doing over here. It's like everything. It's the whole point, I think, is to just feel better and better and better in our lives. And that's what I want for myself. And I want to do it so loudly that it catches on like a tidal wave and you just see it everywhere. So one of the pieces of the Mermaid Portal experience, as far as the Mermaid Portal, as I'm describing it, as I'm kind of building this world, building it out in the physical through these videos. I mean, it's been existing in me for a while. As far as the Mermaid Portal is the space between worlds. It's where we leave behind an old pattern, an old way of being and relating and showing up in the world. We leave that behind and we enter a space of nothingness. It typically comes through like a space where I can't take this anymore. I would rather be nowhere than here. So, let me leave from here and go to nowhere. So nowhere, the liminal space, the bardo, the dark cocoon of we have left behind the old. We know that we are not going to do that anymore. And we would rather have the blank slate of nothingness greeting us. And what to do, right? Like what to do when you're in that space of nothingness. And I'm not a caterpillar anymore, right? I dissolved into some goo. I said, no more caterpillar. There's something more. Oh yeah, what? I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. So bam, you made your cocoon. You're in the nothingness. You're dissolved into goo. You have no idea what is this playing out into. But you trust it. You have faith in that animal body knowing of when is it time to spin the cocoon. The animal grows more fur in the wintertime in response to the cold, in response to the changing of the seasons. Like this physical 3D plane is offering influences like it through the natural world all the time. And so there are seasons to life. There are times where we really come out and we shine, and there are times when we go underground and we lose our leaves and we go dormant for a moment. And that is what we are talking about in this episode, as far as what do you do, kind of like the entry phase of getting into the mermaid portal. the mermaid portal. I'm really glad I let that play out. It's a purtle. I'm a purtle. You're a purtle. Okay, so the mermaid portal. Like when you first get in there, what do you do first? And this is something. What do you do first? Radical rest theory. You implement it in your life. In the nothingness, the first thing to do is radical rest. And one of the reasons for that is what you're coming off of. We talked in the last episode as far as the Shavasana pose that you do at the end of yoga class. Like at the end of yoga class, at the end of a workout, you don't do another workout. You lay down into Shavasana and you soak up the workout you just did. So radical rest theory, right? Like when you're coming off of an intense workout, aka your old world, your old pattern, like it was an intense exercise and you got a lot out of it. It shook up a lot inside of you. The first thing in the mermaid mermaid portal, gosh dang it, I'm probably not going to be able to stop that. Okay, let's hope it continues. It's kind of funny. The first thing you do is to go on radical rest, is to claim the victory. Yeah. I had never thought that word before, but the victory that it was to persevere and endure through what you just came out of. You freaking made it. You freaking made it. Like, you did it. You left it. You like said no, and you meant it, and you drew the line, and you stayed on this side, and you went into the nothingness. Like, the first thing to do is celebrate. The first thing to do is like really let the kitty into the room, you know? Nuggy, you gotta come in. Get on that bed now. Get up there. She needed in there, okay? Yeah, and like when you're coming off of an intense exercise, aka like whatever your old world that you're leaving behind on that side of the mermaid portal, I did it, look at me go. The first thing that you need is rest and recovery. So, you know, we've talked a little bit about like the impulse to shut down the old thing on Friday and get started on the new thing Monday morning bright and early, you know, like to just leap instantaneously from the old to the new. She must need like outside. You're really helping me out here. Thank you for that. Come here. What are you doing? What's happening? But when we leap from the old to the new thing, that is where we are basically just recreating the old pattern. We're recreating what we had going on before instead of leaving it behind. The act of leaving it behind does happen in the physical, but it also has to happen energetically and physically in our nervous system. Like, have you ever... I've had this experience multiple times. I would be surprised if basically everyone hadn't. But have you ever had the experience where you leave a job and then after you're no longer employed by that job anymore, possibly even for quite a while, you still think about it. You still think about like, well, about this time, it's Friday at 10 a.m. Like they're having the staff meeting. Like I would have been there right now. Like, you know, I wonder if so-and-so forgot the thing again. Like, I mean, the way that you will continue to think about something that you are no longer physically involved with, like that is kind of what the mermaid portal is perfect for, is finding release. Finding true release of whatever you are trying to leave in the old. And that is why radical rest theory as the entry portal, the entry point, kind of phase number 1 of the mermaid portal is going into deep rest. And I want to talk as much as wants to come through about that, because there's a lot that we can say. There's a lot around resting just in the culture, and I should say like more anti-resting as far as like you see way more hustle and grind kind of shit than you see about like radical rest theory. We need to get our bed rest, you know? And maybe just a little bit about what do I mean by radical rest theory and why is it radical? Because, you know, there are times when if you go to the doctor, like what they prescribe to you is bed rest. Like that's what they tell you is like, just, you know, bed rest and fluids and, you know, just get some rest. That's what you need. And I personally believe that a lot of people are missing the signals. I know I used to, and I've gotten a lot better and better and better at catching the early rumble strips of my physical body telling me that it's in distress. And so like what used to be, I'm having like a full-on emotional episode, if we can be so kind as to call it that, instead of like a breakdown or something. But if we can just like, yeah, it's like a full-on, like I just crack up and like just dissolve into a non-functioning pile of goo. And it takes weeks or possibly even months to try to like pull that back together and like the reformation process to occur. And now it's like, you know, this is the rest cycle that I'm in right now, is I got like a little pinch in my spine, like at the very top of my spine, kind of at the base of my neck right here. And I've never had that before. And it really like doing this number is the range of motion that is hurting. And so I'm very aware, very aware that that thing is in there. And that is a big red flag as far as like nothing else can happen here until this thing has released its hold on me, like until my body, my physical nervous system has caught up to where I'm at right now. I really don't need to move forward from here. Like there's an embodiment, there's a coming back together of all of my bodies, as far as like the physical one being one of them, but my astral body, my soul body, like, I mean, I definitely, actually there's a video that I'm going to put in the description box that's really cool that goes through our 7 bodies. Highly recommend. It was basically delivered through the understanding that like Kundalini awakening is not a one and done kind of thing usually. Like there's exceptions to every rule, but like we have 7 bodies and mostly one body at a time gets its Kundalini awakening. And so long story short, basically my current rest cycle is coming off of another layer of what I believe to be my astral body having its Kundalini awakening. And I can see where I was getting really far out there in my astral body, and it's awesome and I'm having the time of my life. But like, yeah, like there's a separation between my astral body and my physical body, and it's manifesting as this physical pain that is like a weighting me down into the present moment, of making me more sharply aware of the present moment, that there's a separation here. There's a clench in the system that is not letting all of the energy connect the way that it wants to be connecting. There's a flaw in the slaw, okay? And what happens next is up to each individual, because I know plenty of people, and I used to be one of them, where I'm showing up at work with this thing in my neck, and then I'm in a pissy pants kind of mood all day long, and everybody's gonna feel it from me because like I'm in pain, dude. Like I'm just like just not having anything from anybody. And it's like, now that kind of behavior from my body, like, not as a punishment at all, as a calming it down to like be like, oh yeah, let me make sure that I got my physical body taken care of. And that's where putting myself on bed rest, where I have signed my own doctor's note saying Carly's going to be on bed rest for the next 5 days. And actually that's really exciting, because today was supposed to be the end, and like I would have to go out and like do a thing today where I can't just stay at home and be in bed all day like I have been for the last 5 days, except for when I sit in this chair to talk to you guys, because that's fun and energizing, or at least it is after a few days of being in the bed, where I felt like I really came back into my togetherness, but it took a few days. And that's going to be one of the pieces that we talk about, is like those first few days when you submit to your own voluntary bed rest orders. It can be a little bit rough. It can be a lot of, I should be doing this and I could be doing this, and like a responsible person would be doing this. And I know plenty of people that would like have this thing in their neck and they'd still get their dishes done. Like you can say a bunch of horrific things to yourself. So like those first couple days are, I'll just give you like a forecast into what's waiting for you there. It's a lot of your own shadow. It's a lot of your own inner bully that's going to be talking to you and getting in your face and being like, you're failing right now. And like, so just be ready to be like, oh, there you are. Hey, I figured I'd see you here, like great running into you. So be ready for that, as far as like you get to meet up with your inner bully. And I don't know how you feel about the word bully, but our inner bully, I think, is a very real part of almost all of us, as far as like we are our own toughest critic. And what does that mean? It means that we're our worst bully that we will ever come into contact with. Like we can be rougher on ourselves than anybody hopes to be, because we know where the bodies are buried. We know where the tender spots are. So when it comes to voluntarily releasing, surrendering the physical, like I am going to voluntarily step away And of course, there are things I could be doing. There's probably things on your list of what you should be doing. There's all kinds of things still happening. The world still turns over here, right? Like, it's not like the business just shuts down for 11 months because you need to take a step back. No, it's still over there. And so the pull of it over there is like what we talked about a couple episodes ago, as far as like the atmosphere that you're breaking through. And that first couple days on the rest is like when you put yourself on bed rest, the first couple days, like, prepare to really get a good look at the atmosphere that you're working with. You know, get a good look at what it is that you're trying to leave behind, that you're trying to stay still long enough so that that wave can come over you, the wave of the shoulds, the wave of the social conditioning, the wave of the atmosphere off the old. And if you will hold the course, if you will let yourself stay on bed rest until my plans got canceled today. That was the good news. I don't think I got to that part, but like, until you're feeling better, until your body has like healed itself, or like come into a good feeling place, hopefully back into a good feeling place. I feel like the more subtly we are tapping our brake pedal when the rumble strips are little, the vehicle itself gets a lot less wear and tear. It's like, if you'll ignore the rumble strips and you're just like pedal to the metal, like on the gas pedal, like at the time where like you're on the rumble strips, and then you go past the rumble strips and now you're like on the gravel next to the road, like, nah, that's fine, I don't care about that. You break through the guardrail, you're like, this is bumpy, but okay, like, we're still like 65 and steady, we're holding steady because consistency is important, and I said I would show up. And now you're over the cliff and you're having a meltdown in public. You know what I mean? Have you ever been there? Just me? Okay, sure. I'll take it if you want to sell it. But like, I believe that we've all been in that spot where we said something we wish we wouldn't have. We did something we wish we wouldn't have. Like, that our emotions got the best of us because we bottled them up, because we ignored the small, subtle signs that our body was giving us. You know, we had a headache and we went anyway. It's like, you can do that. That's a choice. Or you can take the dose of pain that you're being given as a sign that like anything that you would continue to do in the 3D is only going to be worse pain from here on out. So you can totally do that. And I've done it many times. I've been off the cliff many times. Like, that's why I know this. That's why, like, because I lived it. I went through the pain, you know, like, no pain, no gain. Like, you got to push through it and you got to get through it. Like, I've done it that way. And I've also been in the fiery heap at the bottom of the cliff after I crashed, you know, like, I know what's down there. I know how, like, when you just fly past the signs, the next logical step is that the ground falls out from under you. And now you're crashed down there, and now you need a long recovery. You know, like, I've had a 3-month recovery period. I've had a 2-week recovery period. I've had an 11-month recovery period. Like, there are times where when you push yourself, it's like the size of the recovery is correlated to the size of the debt, as far as like how much rest did you deprive yourself of in the pushing that you did on yourself. And that's a debt that has to get paid either in small weekly payments or a little bit bigger monthly payments, or you can do a yearly payment. You can do like a payment every 5 years, you know, like that was basically the one that I did that was 11 months long. Like, I went balls to the wall for like 3.5 years ish. And the breaking point I hit, it was like, when you've racked it up for 3.5 years, like, it's going to take a minute. You know, it wasn't the first couple days in the radical rest cycle that was, you know, in this example, 11 months long. It was the first few months. The first few months were like torture. Like, if you've ever seen like 8 of Swords, 9 of Swords, like, where just knives in the brain of like letting go of the old and feeling the pull of the old and feeling the bond with the old and the way the old is part of your identity or at least it has been up until this point. So like walking away from the old, it's not even just like, I'm not going to be over there anymore. It's like, who am I if not that, like the nothingness, the in between, the bardo, the place where we have to face who we really are, where you strip away everything from the physical and you come face to face with who we really are. And who we really are is a very multifaceted creature. Okay, we got layers. Like ogres, we got layers. And as we enter into one of these like bed rest portals, it never lasts forever. That's the thing to remember as you go in, is that I practice letting it take as long as it takes. It will come to its own natural end, just like the trees lose their leaves in the fall and they go dormant while it's cold, and when it warms back up, then they sprout new leaves, and then they really thrive and they grow in the heat of the summer, and then they lose their leaves again. Like, you're not doing anything wrong. The fact that you need a regular rest cycle, you need a regular extended period of time, and extended, I mean, depending on what you're used to, could even be like, I know a lot of people, and again, I used to be one of them, who is working 5 days a week, like a boatload of time, 5 days a week. And then I go home on the weekend and I obsessively clean my house from top to bottom. That's like one whole weekend day. And then the other weekend day is like filled with all these errands that I need to set me up for the week, because I'm not going to give myself any time. I'm going to run myself ragged during the week. And so if I don't, put some food in my fridge on Sunday, there will be no food in the fridge. So, like those kinds of setting myself up because I'm going to deprive myself later. So I'm making this investment. And like, there was no, like, just sit and be, like just let yourself be. And so I feel like you can practice this radical rest theory. Like, let's say you had one free day on your calendar. Like, I've done this a lot in the last year, as I came off that 11-month rest cycle, and I'm like re-entering and finding like, what is the new world? Like, what is my new way of engaging, so that I don't end up in an 11-month rest cycle again. Because, as much healing as I did and as powerful as it was, like, thanks universe, like, it was very disruptive. And it was, like, there's a lot in the world that keeps on spinning. There's a lot in the world that will not wait for you to take that time and be in that space, in that liminal space. They need you to either be here or be over here, or like, come on, like, re-engage with the world. Like, we need you to produce. We need you to do something so that we can know how to feel about you. And the world is part of what I want to talk about, as far as like, when we come face to face with our inner bully, we often will quote society. We'll often like blame society, as far as like, instead of calling it our own inner bully, we're like, well, society doesn't let me take this time off. Like, in my work culture, no, that's just not a thing. Like, you wouldn't call in sick. You would come and do your job. Like, you blah, blah, like whatever. Like, we are facing our own inner bully. We're having our experience of the limitations we are placing on ourselves, and then we are assigning who is giving this to us. We put it out there. We give it to society as a whole. We give it to our work culture. We give it to, our patterns from our past. We put the blame outside of us, as far as like, we don't have the power to change it. And radical rest theory is radical because, right, like, in a way, you got a point. Like, if you look outside yourself, there are maybe like doctor's note kind of thing. Like, as far as like, if you're sick enough that a doctor can review your case and like put you on bed rest, like, here, you got a doctor's note, and now you're validated, as far as like, somebody else said that you should be on bed rest. Other than that, there's really nowhere in the world that is going to come into your space and give you permission to radically rest yourself. It is something that we so far, like, I am exclusively giving it to myself. It is not something that I'm finding outside somewhere where I'm like, this is why I'm doing this. I'm only finding it inside of me, as far as like my neck is locked up. Like, it hurts me to be in my body. So why would I take myself and like try to keep pushing? Like, that is counterintuitive to pain. Pain is a signal in the body. It's a mechanism in the body that tells you to slow down. And a lot of people pop a pain pill and just keep on trucking. And it's like, again, that's a choice. You can do that. I was a daily drinker for years because I would just get a little buzz and keep on going at the way that I was going. And again, that is what led to the 11-month rest cycle, that there was a lot of ground to make up for because of how long I had waited to rest. There was a lot of wear and tear on my vehicle that had built up, that like, it's going to take a while to do all the maintenance that's needed. And if that's the situation that I put myself in, that's that natural outcome. It's the natural consequence of the choice that I made. And in the 3D, there is no, especially from the non-physical perspective of the 3D, there's no shame in any consequence. Like, a consequence is not positive or negative. An 11-month rest cycle after 3.5 years of depriving yourself, like, that's not positive or negative. It's just an outcome. It's just the consequence. Like, this is the choice. This is what happened when you made it that way, when you do the choice that way. So if you want to continue doing it, you can most likely expect a similar type of result. Like, that's kind of how the 3D works. That's how science works, is that science is repeatable. The natural world is repeatable. And so if you continue making choices like that, then that's your outcome. Or you can experiment and make a different choice and see what kind of outcome you get from that, you know? And so with peace and love, like, as little time as we can spend wasted on worrying about like, oh, I did it wrong in the past. Like, no, you did it a way. Good guess. I mean, it probably was very similar to how people around you were doing it. And you thought like, yeah, sure, I'll try that. And so you did, and then you got an outcome. And it's like, cool. We don't have to beat ourselves up because we're not totally satisfied with the quality of the outcome. Newsflash, we probably will never be satisfied with the quality of the outcome. That's kind of the other thing about the 3D, is that when we take our vision, when we take our fantasy, our imagination of like what we want the outcome to be, and then you compare it to what the 3D actually is, there will always be a gap. There will always be a gap between the fantasy and the reality. It'll never live up to the fantasy, the way you can imagine it inside your mind. And so as we come into the realization that when I made this choice, I didn't like the reality that that generated for me, we don't have to waste energy beating up on ourselves for the choices we made in the past. We can literally skip straight to learning from them. You know, like, that choice leads to, you know, A leads to X. I didn't care for X, so I'm going to try B and hope that leads somewhere non-X like, you know, like, let's try something different. And in this case for me, the something different was, instead of pushing through the pain, acknowledging how exhausted I was, acknowledging how emotionally distressed I was, how just at a loss for focus, at a loss for being able to force myself to go one step further. I mean, I probably could have dug deep and made myself, but thankfully I had some anger in the mix that was like, I'm not going to do that. And so, yeah, that really helped. Like, the anger at the old world helped me to not like backslide into it, because you know, sometimes anger can be super useful. Maybe all the time anger can be super useful. As far as like, you know, when we go on radical rest, when we assign ourselves to bed rest, we will be confronted by our inner bully, which basically takes the shape of whatever cultural conditioning we were raised with. And so, you know, I think about my upbringing as the cult of hard work basically was the religion that I was raised in. And rest is kind of the antichrist. Like, rest made you lazy in this philosophy. Rest was seen as weak. It was seen as ungrateful. Like, there were so many connotations tied to it. And so then when I put myself on bed rest, my inner voice tells me all of that. And so the reprogramming that has been required to allow myself to voluntarily surrender to bed rest when I physically feel like I need it. My vehicle needs maintenance at this time, so let me block out this one free day on my calendar, or these 5 free days on my calendar, and then plans get canceled. Boom, 6 days. Woohoo. Like, let me block out this time and spend it on purpose, focusing on my right here, right now, physical sensation experience. Like, what is present with me right now? And sometimes, these last 5 or 6 days, like, most of what I did was watch like 7 seasons of Criminal Minds and watched them hunt down some serial killers, and found it to be extremely soothing and kind of lulled me into a place where I could let go thought-wise. Like, I could put it out of my mind, my old version, like what it was that I was trying to leave behind, and allowed the dust to settle, which at this point, like in this condensed container of, I've done these 5-day ones, like, a lot this year, several times, many times, 7, 8, 9 times. Like, have I taken like these 5 days and just like sit in my bed and do nothing and binge watch TV, eat lots of snacks. The snacks are a real part of it. You got to indulge. You have to indulge yourself. And in the physical self-indulgence, there will be I've never said this so clearly. That's amazing. In the physical self-indulgence, there is a physical safety created between you and you that will, in the longer stretch, let emotions surface. There will be emotional indulgence of yourself that will be blossoming out of creating the physical safety. That's beautiful. I thought we could take a little moment for a kitty palette cleanser, and you could see how freaking huge Bob has gotten. Look at him. He's so big. He's such a big boy. Oh my gosh. And he's very shoulder shaped. He's very holdable. He's very sweet. He purrs all the time. And he is a big fan. Big fan. Maybe the number one fan of radical rest theory. You guys, I would show you. I could show you. You could also get the before of my bedroom. Okay. So there's 2 cats and 1 dog, and there's probably about to be another bob-shaped kitty on the bed. And so as I'm in the bed, they pretty much are all in the bed with me, and we're all working on balancing our energies. Because if you don't have your balance, it's not time to move forward. It's not wise to move forward without your balance. It's very likely that you will fall. I mean, that's kind of what balance is for. It's to keep you upright. And so if your balance is compromised, it's time to rest. It's time to issue that prescription to yourself. Get your little self-care prescription pad out and write yourself a prescription for bed rest, and put it on your calendar even, that this is a self-care staycation. And I put it in a special color. I actually put it on my calendar so that I do not put anything, and a couple of times a month I try to block out big chunks where I'm not expecting myself to do anything. And that is something that, again, I feel very grateful for the life that I have, where over the step by step journey of radically taking care of myself, I have built this ability to be able to take 5 or 6 days off in the middle of nowhere, like just decide that like, well, there's not really anything on my calendar here that can't be pushed back. So I'm just going to like take the next several days off. Like that's a beautiful luxury that, makes you kind of wonder, like, what even is abundance? Because that level of freedom has got to be at the top of the list. And money can't buy that. That's kind of what I'm saying, as far as like, society isn't going to give us this permission slip to take radically good care of ourselves. Like, that's not what society profits off of. Okay. They profit off of you going to work, you making the thing that can be part of the GDP that we can pay taxes on, that we like, you get your income for giving your time. Period. Like, that is the societal construct that currently we are living within, and that I believe is what's crumbling. That's part of that old life paradigm that is being left on this side of the mermaid portal, the mermaid portal, so that we can move into the new life paradigm. And in the new life paradigm, radical rest is an accepted practice. It makes logical sense that, like, as soon as you hit the rumble strips, you press the brake pedal. Like, that's just how it's done, at least in my new world. And the people that are sharing my new world, like, they understand that Carly goes into rest cycles pretty frequently. She drops off the face of the earth for several days, sometimes a month or two. And when she comes back, like, when the creative urge brings her back, she is grounded and centered inside of herself. So we don't even notice that time, because, like, we're just doing our thing. And when she pops back up, great. Like, those are the people in my new world. They give me that amount of freedom, and it doesn't do anything to damage our relationship, because I'm just doing my thing. I'm following my natural cycle. This is what's authentic for me, is to go into deep rest often. And that feels like a beautiful part of my identity to own. So, like, just grounded and centered inside of that, like, this is who I am, and this is how my energy works. And if you've got a problem with that, I'm sorry to tell you, it, like, doesn't really matter, like, I gave myself permission. So, like, your opinion is officially irrelevant. And, at that point, the people who can't tolerate you going into these radical rest cycles, where they come and they are, like, beating down your door of, like, dude, you've been in there long enough. You need to come out here. That is a perfect candidate, in my opinion, for really looking at what that relationship is feeding on. Because if they can't tolerate you taking time to rest, then they're feeding on your own self-deprivation. Like, they're feeding on the fact that you treat yourself not great. Is that what you want your relationship to be based on? You can. It's a choice, right? Like, it's just the 3D, choices and consequences, choices and consequences. Like, it's all so neutral. Couldn't be more neutral. So make your choices, live with your consequences. Make your choices, live with your consequences. And radical rest theory is a choice. It's a beautiful choice. It's an option that I am proud to be able to articulate, so that those who can hear it can come to it and possibly implement and experiment with it in their life, and see if you can replicate the experience that I've had, which is, when you put yourself on a rest cycle, there will always be a natural end. Everything is a cycle in the 3D. So, like, when you put yourself on bed rest, there will come a day when you got to get up. You got to get up, because you got to come get in this chair so that you can make this video. You got to go outside so you can plant those flowers. You got to get up. That happens, like spring, renewal, rebirth. It happens. And especially when you don't rush it. When you truly let the rest cycle complete itself, the transformation, the regeneration, and the reformation, as far as, like, what is coming out in the spring, what is sprouting up out of you soaking up all of these nutrients off of your old world, like, letting the old world and the deep rest cycle, the elongated rest cycle, be a space of incubation and fertilization for what is coming in your new life. And if you will trust that process and let the organic process unfold, what grows in your new world will be effortless. It's already there. It's basically already there. Your new world exists. Like, time is not real, I believe. And I really, really, really believe that to be true. That, like, only in the 3D do we have time. Time only exists in a physical, man-made construct. And when you collapse all time, when you go into the 5D, when you step outside of the 3D physical reality and you re-emerge into the mermaid portal, which is to say you swim down into the bottom of your soul and you find the place where you are the non-physical. You are God. You are the extension of source energy that chose to come into your body. When you find that perspective, aka you've taken time out of the equation, your new world already exists and you already live there. You already lived there. You already lived there. You already learned the lessons. You already got tired of your new world, left it on that side of the mermaid portal, and you're already on to the next one and the next one and the next one. You've already done all of that. Like in the non-physical, where time is not real, all of it already exists. And so what even is the mermaid portal? What even is radical rest? When you let the nutrients of the old truly absorb into your body, when you will let yourself come face to face with your inner bully and you are triumphant. The inner bully can't get you out of the bed. Society or whoever you're blaming it on, your inner bully, can't harass you into doing things that aren't right for you. Talk about transformation. Coming face to face with these things, these the sharpest, potentially harshest aspects of your own relationship with yourself. That is what radical rest theory will put you face to face with. And for better or for worse, you get a glimpse into certain parts and pieces of you that maybe you aren't super consciously aware of. And in the rest cycle, in the portal of the nothingness, in the in-between, between the old thing and the new thing, what is really happening is your frequency has the chance to clarify. You get to clarify, is this inner bully running the show? Is that how you make your choices? Is whatever your inner bully wants you to do? Because again, that's a choice and it leads to some consequences. And if you like those, then great. But if you don't, then I wouldn't let the inner bully run the show anymore, and choosing to stay your ass on bed rest until your body feels better. You're going to have to take the reins from the inner bully. Okay. Again, I'm just going to give you a warning that that's what's coming. So be ready for that as far as yeah, this is the part that I want to leave behind, not the physical reality that I was tangled up in, this inner bully. Because this inner bully is who drove you into that past reality that you're trying to leave behind. So if you truly want to leave behind the past reality, the inner bully, the decision maker that put you there, needs to stay behind as well. Or at least not be calling the shots anymore. Get a demotion in the process, promote somebody else to be the final decision maker. Preferably your soul, preferably unconditional love for you. Let that be the decision maker. And if that's the decision maker, then it doesn't matter what you do. You're already loved. You're already worthy. You're worthy because you exist. It's inherent within you. And so, of course, you're allowed to sit there for 11 months in your bed and binge watch Criminal Minds. Oh, you finished the series? All 18 seasons? Start it over. Sounds good to me. Try Dexter for a while. Great. Unconditional love wants you to feel loved. And self-indulgence is a really great way to help yourself to feel more loved. And this has been some thoughts on radical rest theory, right? That's really all I can claim out of this. I personally really like working with this concept in my reality. I personally get a lot. It is worth its weight in gold as far as I'm concerned to tap your brake pedal at the very first little rumble strip rather than trying to rebuild your vehicle while it's on fire at the bottom of the canyon. That's just my 2 cents, from some random person in the world who's trying to enjoy her life. And also, a huge thank you and shout out to my friend Jody. I mentioned a couple of videos ago that there are some relationships in my world where like, right, like I don't leave them behind on purpose, because as I engage in this relationship, I get more, I get bigger, I get stronger, I get more loved in myself. Like the relationship is nurturing, it's nutrient rich as far as like myself growing into the fullness of who I was born to be. There are some relationships like that in my life, and this one with Jody is a key prime example of what I said before, as far as like sometimes like I am filled with so much energy that I can't even give it all to her. And this video is a perfect example of that. So number one, yay for canceled plans. Number two, yay for Jody. Say hi to Jody in the comments if you're grateful for this video, because her confirmation really pushed me over the edge as far as I was sharing some of these ideas with her. And it was so fun to get to talk about radical rest theory and the ins and outs of like what it is and how it challenges you and how it's like transformative. And it's so great. And I was explaining it to her. And then in the kind of quiet after I did that, I was like, you know what? I just got the day freed up. Like I really want to make a video. Like, I really want to talk about this, like in an extended, like, I really want to get into this. And then she texts me back and she's like, this little voice recording that's like, everything you just said in that message is pure gold. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we're making the video. Here we go, people. Strap yourselves in. We're going back to the mermaid portal, the mermaid portal, hashtag mermaid portal. If you made it to this point. Oh, you guys, this was a silly one. And I love that for radical rest theory, where I'm coming to you after, I'm on my 6th day of bed rest. So I'm feeling like $1 million. I'm feeling like $1 trillion. I'm feeling like, somebody really loves me. And that person is me. I responded to what I needed. I gave it to myself in abundance, and I created a boundary around myself to protect myself while I sat in this nurturing space for the last going on 6 days. So, that amount of showing up for yourself by acknowledging when you need to put yourself into a rest place, when being over here is too much, I can't take it anymore, it's physically hurting me, I need to step away. And not because it's a great time, not because nothing else is happening back over here, so that's all done, so I guess I'll just sit in the nothingness. No, I'm choosing to not be there anymore because I personally cannot take it. It's hurting me. So let me step away. Let me acknowledge what is real for me. Let me show up in the way that I need to show up right now. What's authentic for me? To sit in my bed for 5 days and watch Criminal Minds. So you know what? That's what I'm going to keep on doing, as soon as I finish this video. So I hope that you are taking really, really radically good care of yourself. That's what I hope for. And so will I.